Hello, and welcome to this virtual roundtable discussion, where we'll be discussing how to build personalised and seamless digital experiences. This is one of a series of 3 videos on building a seamless multi-channel experience. The videos, sponsored by Airship, form the basis of an article in the Future CMO supplement, published in the Sunday Times. I'm your host, Morag Cuddaford-Jones, and I'm delighted to be joined by 5 of the world's most influential leaders in this space. They are Steve Tan, VP and General Manager EMEA APAC for Airship; Mantas Ratomskis, Head of CRM and Retention at Kilo Health; Angela Byrne, Digital Banking and Transformation NatWest; Holly Ainger, CMO Nuffield Health; and Neil Kirby, Marketing and Consumer Director, Blooper Global. So my first question to our panel is personalization behind creating the ideal seamless digital experience?
It isn't.
Well, that's short and sweet. Mantas, please explain.
Yeah, actually, for quite a long time, personalization was one of the buzzwords in digital marketing, in digital products development, and so on. But what we see that when everyone hopped into that train, guys lost track. They lost track how deep that personalization must be done. From my own experience, we are serving more than 1 million customers in almost all the countries in the world, and we have more than 30 products which are from the very sensitive area. It is all about digital health and wellness. From the very first perspective, you would think that it must be personalized a lot, but no. Technically, we are dealing with I say it from marketing perspective, with 3 macro segments, and entire product development is all about that 3 macro segments, and that personalization around the customer is way deeper. When you try to chase each and every customer, most of the time you face edge cases, and that edge cases are so hard to understand that you spend substantial amount of time actually solving non-existing problem of the least valuable customer. So I think that personalization per se is really great sort of theory, but when guys start to wrap entire product development around personalization and even marketing strategy around personalization, they spend too much time and actually lose the focus of the actual outcome of product development strategy, digital marketing strategy, and so on.
So is that just that you're not going too deep, because obviously you need to personalize language and
yes,
to countries and experience, but and maybe name, I don't know, but like if you go too deep on personalizing, say a journey or a life cycle, then you can get too niche, and then you just spend so much time
exactly. And then you have, and I always say that you have to have segments amount which is workable. You always have to keep in mind that 20% of your customers will create 80% of the value of the revenue. So you have always divide your resources to serve that 20% first, and don't go into very deep areas, because there is a black spot there. And most of the time you will face something unclear, and it will be interesting, but it won't bring you the value.
Perhaps it's sort of less about the personalization and more about kind of the data that we've got about the customer, which provides that more relevant experience. Although I would say that I do think the changes in cookies, I do think personalization still has a part to play, especially first party versus third. But yeah, agree in principle that I think it's less about personalization and more about how we can give that customer that better, more relevant experience.
I like your view, Holly, of it. Maybe the personalization is actually the data they give you, right? It's the data. It's how much. That's how you personalize. It's not making the assumptions on the data you've garnered, because as we know, if you garner that data from third-party information, you're sort of, how accurate is it, how informative, and first party data is so much more critical to delivering, a better experience.
I think as well, it's the balance. It's a balance like everything else. It's in some part those personalized experiences, but actually there is a point at which you would stop. That the benefit you get from further, it's a law of diminishing returns, right? The benefit the customer or the organization gets from even more personalized experiences just stops. So I think it's a balance, but I think if we think about how customers behave and also what they expect, their expectations are formed by what they do every day and what they experience every day, particularly in a digital environment. Just what happens every day, how they interact, how they go about their daily lives really informs what their expectations are. And we've particularly found that over in financial services, we've had to bring that design thinking and absolutely sort of those expectations into how we look at personalization, how we look at designing products and experiences for customers, because actually being good enough is being good enough at that experience is no longer enough. We absolutely have to, their expectations are formed by, providers like Netflix, Amazon, and so on and so forth. And for us to be able to compete in that area means that we have to be design-led from a consumer perspective.
It's not one size fits all, but I think the further you go down the personalization route, that if you get it wrong, the higher probability someone's going to say, I don't, this is really odd that you've served me this. It's like having a really good friend giving you a birthday present. You're just going to go, I have no idea why you're giving me this. How well do you know me? So it's kind of double-edged sword. And yeah, I think it's, maybe personalization isn't the right term anyway. It's persona-led type thinking, or an element of how do we make sure we're serving you for, I think what was 80% of the journeys that you're interested in. And again, it's the trap of falling into the data down to the kind of nano level, when the point is it's dangerous down there.
And it's interesting, isn't it? You're talking about personalization, the long tail, looking for the edge cases, etc. As marketers or as digital experts, you're all incredibly good at your jobs. This is why you're here. So is there an argument to say that, okay, we understand the customer, we understand our business, we understand what we can build for you. You don't necessarily know all the stuff that we can make for you. How much of personalization and then understanding the customer is about leading the customer into and educating them that this is actually something, the Henry Ford cart horse, faster horse thing. How much of this is actually building something that the customer intimately enough? They wouldn't have asked for this stuff, but once it's there, they very much love it. Steve, you're nodding, but I don't know if I've...
Yeah, I can see there's a big element of that, and I think that is difficult. A lot of the things that we appreciate now as commonplace are probably things that weren't in place and consumers may not have suggested or thought that they could go after. But then, there are messaging experiences, for example, or personalized experiences, I think, which are just almost common sense. Think about things like back in stock and just getting a notification that something's back in stock. That's kind of just common sense. And I think sometimes you're better as a consumer yourself when you're using the experiences and you're like, why is it so hard to do this here and here? Or why can't I just do that? And, you hit your own barriers, and then I think you would be solving, that you're providing a solution for the 80% in those many of those scenarios.
And sometimes you've got to take a risk as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how you innovate, right? And that's in some ways a bit about experimentation, right? And I don't think we can miss that out. There's an element of you do need to continue to experiment and prove out and try different things and innovate. And I think that's how you find those gems.
In our market is a bit different story, because we have lots of different products which serve from like personalized diets, workouts, even diabetes research, cancer research, and all that stuff. So for us, Actually, we have to be sort of a leader, almost 100%, because we were laughing, internally that we are sort of like that personal trainer in a gym. We know our stuff. Customers come to us because they want guidance. They want full guidance from the very beginnings, and they achieve their goals. And if we will start to ask them, it will be like if your trainer at the gym will ask, how do you think? Do you need to live that? I don't know. Do you need to live that? I don't know. So it depends on the market most of the time. But once again, you have to, if there are certain moments when you have to be in a position of an expert, of a leader, and if you create something, for whom you are going to sell it, who are going to be your customers, and how you are going to approach them and what value propositions you will give them.
I think that's an interesting point. I mean, I think, sorry, that there's a relevancy and there's a part personalization, but from a health insurance perspective, if a customer phones us and is seriously ill and wants to be case managed, all of a sudden you go into it's not even personalization anymore. It's about that person very, very quickly. And I think that's, you could call it personalization, but it's basically knowing your customer, knowing that particular customer and doing the right thing for that customer. So it kind of leapfrogs this whole personalization piece into a one-to-one conversation so you can maximize value for that customer.
I think it's very interesting. This is sort of taking me in the direction of challenges, almost into what challenges customers to getting the sort of products that they want. And as you were talking, Mantis, a bit about the personal trainer, and we have to show them they're the experts, and things about financial services were popping into my mind, possibly because I've only recently remortgaged. And one of the things we're seeing, Angela, in financial services is that financial services used to be very, very much barriers. You didn't know what you were going to get until you'd let through all the hurdles, and then computer said no. But now there's very much more about money management and explaining how this all works through content and advisory services and everything else. When you're talking about designing a seamless experience, we can't take all those barriers out of financial services because they're necessary for regulation, customer safety, all these things. How do you then perhaps turn that from a design perspective, from customer experience, into an advantageous journey? You can't give them everything they want. It's one of the weird things about financial services. If I want a bottle of Lucozade or Fizzy Pop, I can buy it. I can't necessarily get a mortgage if I'm not allowed to have it.
Yeah, I mean, regulation plays a big part in it, and so it should, right? And it's there to help with ensure customers get the right outcome, and I think that's the way it will continue, and it will change and pivot over time, but that's at the heart of where regulation stands. But I think what's really interesting, and we've seen over the last of couple of years, really, is we can give a lot of insights. So we have a lot of data, as we've talked about, and effectively we can give insights into helping customers make the most of their money. So that they're useful insights in terms of, have you thought about different scenarios and saving money and helping them plan for their future and so on and so forth. And they find that really insightful and helpful in terms of tips. But I think the other part, which is critical as well, is one of the core parts that customers value, and one of the things that are most important to our customers is security. Ensuring they have security and their data is secure, but also that we protect them from fraudsters and financial crime and so on and so forth over the course of their relationship with us. So sometimes in designing experiences, we have to put interventions in place, whether that's digital or face-to-face. We have to put interventions in place to make sure that it is in fact the customer is in fact wants to do what they've signed up to do, and so on and so forth. They value that, customers value that intervention. So it's almost like a disruption to the experience, but it's a worthwhile disruption. I mean, the key part of that is when we do have that intervention, resolving it be as simple as possible. So helping a customer with a potential fraud and helping them through that process is really important. But also, whilst when we're confirming that the customer is in fact that person undertaking the transaction, that it's really simple and two-way, that they they can confirm really quickly that it is them, when they can get on with their daily business in terms of making that payment or buying whatever they need to buy over the internet. And that is pivotal. So it's that mix between design and simplicity, but also protecting the customer, because that is a key moment of truth. And all the research we do shows that that's almost one of the number one outcomes in terms of importance to our customers, which is that security.
I mean, in terms of, we can understand that finance security is vitally important. And so as customers, we will, we'll jump through those hoops. It's, we will see an inconvenience, but we know why it's there. Where things are still important, but slightly less critical, when we're looking at designing those digital experiences, whether we have to, by the way the mechanisms in the back are structured, you have to be booted out of an app and onto a website, or from a website and into a call center, from a call center into an actual physical building. As you've all mentioned, customer experiences are set this high, from the A brand that should never be mentioned by name again. But it's not always possible to deliver that absolute end-to-end, I don't have to be jumped out of anything. Is there a point at which those barriers become too big? And how can we help customers navigate those so that they feel it's as seamless as it could have been? I don't know, Holly, if you've got any particular views.
I think that we all strive to have that experience where you don't have to log in and log back out again. Would I say that every brand does it brilliant at the moment? Probably not. Are we all striving to do it? Yes. I think that there's an element of being honest with the customer about that certain situation and saying, this is what we're doing, this is what we want to do, and we're in the process of working through that. But I certainly think that it's about that ease of flexibility and making it simple for the customer. Is everyone there yet? Probably not. Do we want to get there? Yes. Does it take investment and technology? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, Manthus, from an app perspective, you've got a great deal of experience over this, over several years, in terms of, getting apps feel like they should be my one little bubble of perfection. You built it to exactly how you want. What do you mean I can't do everything I want to do in my app?
Yeah, so there is an app for everything, literally, I think, for everything. But when we speak about, that seamless moment, everything what falls out of the one platform is bad by all means, because customer, and we have a very serious problem which is related due to fees of app stores and so on. Even the same Amazon restricted purchasing books, Kindle books from mobile app, due to high fees. So I think this will be a very huge shift in the future. But speaking about that seamless journey between the platforms, we on a daily basis we're using mobile phones, laptops, iPads, Kindles, PlayStation, what else, media centers, and so on and so on and so on. I think the key problem is when you design a sort of environment which includes more than one platform, right. you have to be sure that customer knows at each moment what is happening, why he needs to to go from his laptop to why he needs to download the app, or why he needs to enter his credentials once again, and so on. So here there is a critical thing to be extremely sort of a crystal clear with your communication, and customer must be informed at any point why you are doing this to him, because that's sort of, it creates a friction, I would say, when you have to purchase something on your web browser and then download the app and then enter credentials once again and so on. So it's extreme friction which can be fixed only by sort of a normal human talk.
Steve, do you have any views you want to add to that about removing the friction?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very frustrating experience if you're having to logging into different environments. I think, Mantis, in the app world, there are numerous mechanisms that we can start to make those things easier. So being able to utilize the Face ID, for example, just does make it very seamless, to the point that you almost forget what your credentials are, and then that makes it hard to log in anywhere else, right? But more and more so, I think brands are then utilizing cross-channel experiences, so that you utilize the apps as controllers, right, for other channels that you want them engaged on. So if you want to log in online, they might tell you to go through your app first, or just to authenticate yourself on the app so they know you're logging in, etc. I think some of the other challenges that do exist where you don't always know where that customer is on the journey. So we're talking about authenticated users, but sometimes if you're thinking about trying to acquire new users, you don't know anything about those people, and at what point do you direct them to register, and how much information do you gather from them to register? Because if you're asking for, as you point out, like if you're on a PlayStation or TV and you're trying to ask them to collate all this data, I mean, the data entry just isn't there to make it easy. If you want to really make it seamless for the channel or the device that they're working on.
Yeah, I kind of want, we've had this before. We've talked about things like social logins, and then we kind of all fell out of love with social platforms, so we don't want to give them our data. And I self-sabotage to an almost insane degree when it says, do you want to guest checkout, or do you want to log in and create an account? And I'm going, well, no, I don't want to create an account, and the guest checkout took longer than creating an account. So, the perversity of the consumer. And just to round off this session, are there any sort of ideal next steps? What would be a best practice, do you think, for smoothing, if not solving, for smoothing this experience?
I believe that connectivity is really important, and that's really around the investment in technology. That's not going away, that's going to continue. And I think technology, used to change a lot. Now it changes all the time. It just changes, there are developments in technology all the time, and it's changing all the time. And the connectivity that I talk about is really around APIs and surfacing data to enable different platforms and systems to connect, and the relevant data to connect at the right time. That only comes through investment, but that takes time. That's a 2, 3, 5 year investment in terms of most industries, to try to create that connectivity and that seamless experience. So it's only really by having that investment can you create that connected experience, in my view. But as I said, it's a lengthy investment period in terms of all industries really.
Although I would say the pandemic definitely speeds things up. I've never got some APIs working more quicker than when the pandemic hit us.
Yeah,
that's a fantastic note to end on. Do click through to the other videos in this series, where we'll be talking about managing the multi-channel ecosystem and creating relationships that make customers want to come back again and again. I'd like to thank our panelists for being so free with their views and experience. But most of all, I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope you found it useful.